accessed the podcast of OA. Located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will, the podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lantern Myron Rumsey, the podcast of OA begins now.
Hey, fellow Owens, you're tuned in to the podcast of OA, episode number 181. I'm your co-host, Myron Rumsey, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about Green Lantern news, our Know Your Core segment, and we're going to be talking about the 5th issue of the Geoff Johns Green Lantern run, as well as some listener feedback. Joining us, as always, is our good friend Phil Bova. Phil, my friend, this is the week of Thanksgiving. Are you all ready for the holiday?
I'm ready to go, friend. I'm ready to go. We're doing a small little gathering. My wife and I are making some dishes, and then we're going over to my sister's house, and then her and her husband, and then my dad and my grandma are going to be there. So, and Clark. So we're doing a small little gathering. We're trying to keep with the rules and regulations put out by the CDC. So.
Yeah, we're still in an orange zone in New York State, so there's severe limitations on gatherings and such. And normally I get together with my sister and her family, and my brother comes in from out of town, and we all get together. But he's not traveling this year, and with some things going on at my sister's family, they don't really want to have company over because of some health issues. So it's going to be just me, my wife, and my son this year.
Nothing wrong with that. Small little intimate affair is pretty good.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be smoking my turkey, and I love doing. I'm a huge barbecue guy. For people that don't know me outside of doing the podcast, but I'm a huge barbecue guy. So I've been looking forward to doing a turkey on the barbecue. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, smoked turkey is the best.
Love it.
Can't beat that. Yeah, I think my brother-in-law is smoking his turkey too. So, yeah, it's going to be a good week, though. It's going to be sad because Mom's not here, but
yep.
She'll be there in spirit. So that's all we can do.
Yep,
keep
that's
moving
true.
on.
It's true. So Green Lantern news. There's not a lot of stuff going on, but there's some stuff going on. DC hasn't really announced it yet, but over on Amazon you can see a listing for a John Stewart 50th anniversary book that's supposed to be coming out next June.
It's a good looking cover too.
Yeah, it's a good looking cover. I'm hoping there's more inside than what's listed on the hardcover listing, because there aren't that many issues listed here, and I'm a little surprised that they didn't include anything from the Green Lantern Corps run.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it only shows Volume 2, 87, 182, and 185. Volume 3, 74 and 156. Volume 4, number 49, Mosaic 18. And Justice League of America 110. It's kind of a ragtag group of books that's included in there. Right.
And they only list 8 books, and it's supposed to be 360 pages. So I don't know whether there's like some essays or something else that goes along with it. I'm also surprised they included Green Lantern Mosaic number 18, just because it's written by Geoff Johns. And as we all know, he's kind of persona non grata because of his activities outside of the comic book world.
Sure.
So I'm kind of surprised that's there. But like I said, there's not really anything from the Green Lantern Corps series where, John played a real prominent role. So I'm kind of surprised about that, but we'll see. Maybe this is only a partial list because DC hasn't really listed their official solicitation. This just showed up on Amazon. But interesting nonetheless. I think it's interesting. This is the first time they've done an anniversary book for a singular character of the Green Lantern Corps. Like they didn't do one for Hal's 50th. They didn't do anything for Kyle, who I think he's gone past the 20-year mark. I think actually he's at the 25-year mark by now. So surprised that nothing for Guy. So it kind of surprising that this is the first one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I give up trying to figure out why DC makes the moves and the decisions that they do anymore.
All it does is lead to headaches and frustration.
Or head scratching. Oh, gosh.
Yep, that's true. Now, there were some rumors floating around about the HBO Max show, and some of them I believe are true. We've seen some things come out. They've talked a little bit about some of the casting of what they're looking for, and because some audition tapes leaked, and I don't know if you saw any of those.
I didn't see the tapes, but I read some of the rumors and stuff, like the guy stuff and the Alan Scott stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There were the audition tapes leaked, and Warner Brothers was really quick to pull them down, although one of them is still out there. The last time I looked, but there were 2 audition tapes for 2 different actors for Alan Scott, and then there was a new character, and I remember the name of the character, but it's a half human, half alien character. She's going to be a person of color and is going to be Guy's partner in the 1980s. I don't know why they just didn't go with a character that we already know, but anyway, there was a leaked footage of an audition tape for a person going for that role too. So it's interesting. A guy having a wife and daughter is also very, very surprising.
Well, and I also heard that, I need to figure out why I don't know. I guess it's not a big deal, but like, I also heard that Alan Scott was going to be, he's going to be a gay character and stuff. And while I don't care, I mean, that doesn't really bother me, but I'm just kind of wondering where along his path, who and what decided that they were automatically going to make him the synonymous gay character of the DC universe. You know what I mean? It's like they have all these characters they could have chosen from, and they chose Alan Scott, and I don't think Martin Odell, when he first created the character, would have probably personified him as being gay, but I'm just kind of wondering where along the timeline that was decided for him moving forward.
Right. They did that with Larry Traynor on the Doom Patrol show as well. And it's funny because as a comic book fan, I want to see the source material being paid homage to and being truthful to the comics. You can tell new stories. I mean, I don't expect, I don't want a panel for panel adaptation of comic book stories, but I like to see new adventures with characters that have endeared themselves in the public consciousness. And I don't see why we have to keep changing things. And again, I have no problem with the character being gay. I just don't understand why doing that to Alan Scott, who clearly wasn't designed that way. We're kind of, adding stuff to a character that doesn't need to be. And the same with making up another character. When you've got so many rich characters in the Green Lantern Corps character mythology, why make up another one? Let alone yet another human one. Now, granted, half human, half alien. But I guess
that leaves room for interpretation. But when you go about gender bending characters, and then automatically slapping a hashtag on there as them being transsexual or gay or, iconic black, it's like, I don't understand what the general purpose is for doing that, and it's like, I don't know, sometimes I think it's like the James Bond dynamic, there's this thing about James Bond being a female, and, I grew up with James Bond, so did my dad. My dad got us hooked on that. And I never saw the purpose of saying, well, why would a creator want to just go to automatically make James Bond a female? What's the point? Are they trying to get a new audience? Because that character, you're not going to get a new audience just because you gender bend them. It's the same thing with Alan Scott. But I guess whatever works is whatever works, and I don't care either way. It doesn't bother me. I'm still a huge Alan Scott fan, whether he's gay or otherwise. But I'm just somewhere along the way and along his path, and since he's been written, somebody sat down and said, I think we should make this character gay because, why not? Or was it a purpose behind it?
Well, it goes down to this whole thing, and, gender bending is one thing. I think the James Bond thing is actually the female that's going to be in the new Bond movie isn't going to be James Bond, but it's going to be the new 007, but with a different character name, but same difference. The problem is while you may be bringing in new viewers through inclusion, it also sounds like pandering, and you risk alienating the diehard fans of the characters in the first place. And so it's, if you're not going to stay true to the source material, then why call it that? Why not just make up something new? You're using the mythology to sell something, but then you're not being true to it. And that's always been my concern. And that's part of the problem I have with DC's practices of let's hey, we need a new character, give him a power ring or give him super speed. That seems to be the default thing to do. And how many characters can the Green Lantern mythology support when there's only one book right now, and who knows what's going to happen later. But it's getting to the point where you can't count the number of Earth Lanterns on two hands.
It's kind of like, it's funny because it's kind of like the Harley Quinn Poison Ivy romantic interlude that's taking place between those two characters. And you go looking back at the beginning of when those characters were created or whatnot. I mean, both of those were two different ends of the spectrum. They barely even talked. They barely even did whatever they did in books. But now they're like intertwined.
Right.
And for all intents and purposes, I'm not a Batman fan, so I don't really care what happens in that universe. But it does seem like a creative way to personify those two characterizations by tagging them as being lesbians or whatever they're gonna create. But with a Green Lantern universe, I mean, if I'm a homosexual, and I'm reading a character, I want to know. If I'm investing in that character, that means I want to go back and read more about that character. Well, what's to say I'm going to go back and say I'm going to read some of Alan Scott's old stuff? You're going to go back and you're going to read it. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be a little offended because I'm going to be like, okay, well, this guy is clearly not homosexual. I wonder when along the lines they decided to make him gay. Because to me that would, I don't know, I'm not a homosexual, so I can't relate to that kind of feeling, but it would feel kind of, I don't know, cheap maybe, or insulted. I don't know.
I think I would feel cheated. I think I would feel like, I'm being pandered to,
Right.
But
I would like to get some listener feedback on there, and if there's anybody out there listening, feel free to chime in or write us, because I'm kind of curious how that's going to take with the fandom. But I guess with Alan Scott being premiered on the HBO Max series or whatnot, I would assume that that's kind of the creative link that they're going with to kind of attract the viewers, and that's all well and good. But what does that mean for his character on Stargirl? Is he going to have the same? Is he going to have the same tag? I mean, so
right. Is he even going to be there?
Do both, huh?
Is he even going to be there?
Right? Is he even going to be there? But anyway, so if there's anybody listening, feel free to chime in. I'd like to get some feedback on that. Honestly, I'd really like to get some people's thoughts on it.
Right. I'd like to hear other people's perspectives, and I think your Harley Quinn analogies really resonates with me because I really liked Harley Quinn when she first debuted in the Batman the Animated Series. I love the fact that she was someone who was hopelessly in love with the Joker, and he really didn't appreciate her. He used her, but I think deep down he still loved her too, at the same time, as much as the Joker can love anybody. And that dynamic of her being hopelessly in love with him was interesting to me. Not that I liked the fact that he treated her badly, but I just felt like her being hopelessly in love with someone who could never really love her back and mistreat her, I thought was interesting because you saw her struggles. And now that she's on the other end of that, I don't find the character nearly as interesting. To me, she's basically Deadpool in the DC universe. She's breaking the fourth wall and telling jokes, and there's no depth of character anymore. She's become a parody of herself. But
yeah, and she's well, just like Batman, she's a hot commodity. So, and to me, she's become, I mean, for lack of a better word, over sexualized too.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but whatever.
Yep. Other Green Lantern news. A while ago, we talked about a book that I contributed to called The Games That Weren't. And it was a huge 650-page hardcover book from the UK by a gentleman by the name of Frank Gaskin, who spent 7 years researching all of these video games that never reached publication. And he did a chapter on a Green Lantern game that was in development back in the 90s. And it kind of ended up in development purgatory because, they basically, the studio in the UK got the license to do DC stuff. They were working on a Green Lantern game. It had Hal in it, and they shelved it for a while. And then they brought it back out of mothballs, and then Emerald Twilight hit, and they had to change everything up. So then they started working with Kyle, and then it went into development purgatory again. And by the time they got anywhere with it, where it was anywhere close to even being half completed, you were at the end of the lifespan for the Super Nintendo. And so the whole thing kind of went down the tubes. And he contacted me about some Green Lantern history because he didn't understand what was going on in the comics and he wanted some background. It was really nice of him to give me a credit in the book. I appreciate that. But recently, there was some video released out on YouTube from a channel called Game History Secrets. And Frank Gaskin actually got a prototype cartridge from one of the developers. And so you can actually see moving footage. I mean, all we had before were still shots. You can actually see some moving footage now of the game. There's an article on it on the blog of OA. You can find it on YouTube if you go look for Game History Secrets. It's really kind of neat to see. It's very, it's very dated gameplay. It's your traditional platformer. I can see why it didn't make it out because it looked like it wasn't completely done yet, but it's fun to see. It's fun to see.
I don't know if you know or if you follow them on Instagram or not, but there's a Instagram person called Project GL1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a she, if I'm not mistaken. She does her Camaro is all Green Lantern up. Anyway, she sent me the cartridge, a picture of the cartridge or whatnot on my Instagram. I just shipped it over to you. I think she had you tagged on there too.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So that's neat. It's worth checking out if you haven't seen it. And then one of the other pieces of comic book news is, I don't know if people are following Dark Knight's Death Metal, but in the Dark Knight's Death Metal, The Multiverse That Laughs, say it 5 times fast. It has a story of an alternate universe where the Green Lanterns have kind of taken over everything, and Ollie leads as aka Green Arrow is kind of working with the rebels to get people out and so on. And he and Hal come to odds with each other because Hal is kind of a puppet of the Guardians, as all the Green Lanterns are. And Ollie Queen believes that the Guardians are tampering with the Green Lanterns and manipulating them through their power rings, and is trying to convince Hal to take his power ring off, and Hal won't do it. And the two of them get into a big battle. I haven't read the book yet because it hasn't come out yet, but people who've seen it have commented on it a little bit. It looks kind of interesting.
Cool. No, I haven't read it either. It feels like the Dark Knight's Death Metal has been going on forever.
It seems to be dragging on and on and on. I've got the books. I flipped through them, but I can't follow what's going on, and B, I'm not really sure if I care what's going on, to be honest.
Right.
And then the last thing to talk about before we get into the rest of the show is we've talked about before and mentioned in the past the Green Lantern Book Club that we have over in our Facebook group. And Daniel, who's running the group for us, he is going to take it away from Facebook and do it on Skype, primarily because they've had some problems with Facebook and doing the live events, and he wants to kind of open it up a little bit. So for anybody who's interested in participating in an online book club where people get together and talk about different books from Green Lantern history, he's going to be doing it on Skype, and his email address that he set up for this is bookclubofoa@gmail.com. So you'll be able to email him and he'll let you know what's going on. He's going to be organizing different times and dates when people can get on Skype and just chat about the books, which I think is a huge benefit to the community. And if you're out there and want to participate in that kind of stuff, you are very welcome to it. I'll have a link to that email in the show notes, and there'll be a link going up on the blog of OA page as well for that.
Hey, so far you got the podcast of OA, the blog of OA, the book club of OA. You need to start a trend here.
The last thing I want to do before I don't want to forget about it because it is Thanksgiving here in the United States. And for those of you that don't live in the United States, it's a day where we kind of acknowledge the blessings that we have in our lives. And I kind of wanted to just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, regardless of what country you're from. We are certainly thankful for everybody who goes to the blog of our website, who participates in the Facebook community, and who listens to the show. And I went out and looked at a couple of statistics today and was completely overwhelmed by some of the numbers I saw. And since the blog of OA has been going, and I started it back in 2009, there have been 2.5 million hits, which in the term of the web is not huge traffic. There are sites that get that many hits in a day. But to me, that's 2.5 million more hits than I thought it was going to get. So I'm very appreciative of that. And in terms of the podcast, looking back over the past 180 episodes, there have been over 250,000 downloads.
That's pretty good, man. That's really, really good.
So, thank you all for letting us come into your fandom and be a part of it. And I hope that it's added value. And every time we do this stuff, and sometimes I get down, and sometimes when I do, I look at some of the things like the Facebook group and that kind of thing, and it lifts me back up again. So you guys are helping me as much as I might be helping you. So thank you all for just letting us be a part of your experience.
Yeah, that's really cool. And and for those of you that are celebrating Thanksgiving, just make sure that you stop and give thanks for things around you. It doesn't matter what it is. But I mean, these are obviously troubling times, and everything's kind of at a standstill in this country, and probably pretty much around the world. And it takes but a few seconds of your day to just give thanks. You don't even have to be a Thanksgiving person to do it. Just to give thanks for those around you, your loved ones, your pets, your family, your friends like Myron, and pause and do that on Thursday or any day for that matter. Just to know that you're thinking about somebody out there, because there's people out there that aren't as well off as others, and they probably could use a useful kind of touching, I don't know, thought for the day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely.
So we will be back in a minute or two, and my friend Phil, you've got a Know Your Course segment, and then we'll be back talking about Green Lantern number 5.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Hear your host, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classics and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher, or visit monsterkidradio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Price, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, Classic Monsters, Modern Talk, and the Head of Rondo Hatton, only on Monster Kid Radio.
Hello, fellow Owens, and welcome back to another Know Your Course segment. This week, we have Lok Neboora. That's Lokneboora. Lok Neboora. His first appearance is from Green Lantern number 4, October of 2005. Created by Geoff Johns and Ethan Von Sciver. He hails from Space Sector 3014. He is a member of the multi-evolutionary amphibious species that has 5 stages of evolution in their lifetimes, and currently in his 4th. What his 5th form will be is unknown. Lok Neboora was among the new recruits brought in to repopulate the Green Lantern Corps when it was reestablished after its destruction years prior by Parallax and Hal Jordan. It was during his training period on Oa that the Spider Guild chose to launch its attack on the planet, and Lok had to help defend the planet before he had even earned his badge. Over a year later, Lok was fully trained and active Green Lantern along with his sector partner, Berir Watt. He fought on the front lines of the Sinestro Corps War defending the planet Earth. He survived when many other Green Lanterns did not. Lok was later killed by Black Lantern Chip. However, he survived, as he is seen with other Green Lanterns as they search to arrest Hal Jordan during the War of the Green Lanterns. And there you have it, folks. Another cool addition to the Know Your Course segment. Also a very, very cool character.
Listen up, Lanterns. It's time you took the oath with Green Lantern John Stewart. In brightest day, in blackest night, don't let the podcast of Oa escape your sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
All right, so we've got a comic book to talk about in this episode, and it's Green Lantern number 5 from early on in the Geoff Johns run. And this issue really kind of brings a number of elements together that Geoff Johns was building on. You know, we've seen so far, we've seen a little bit of Hector Hammond. We've seen, during Green Lantern Rebirth, we saw a little bit of Black Hand. And last issue, we were teased with the Shark. And this issue brings all of those elements together. And there's some commonality as to their origins of how they got to where they are. Kind of some revisionist history by Geoff Johns. And before we get into the blood and guts of the issue, so to speak, I got to talk about the cover to this issue. Just an amazing image of the shark with the power battery in his mouth. Fantastic art by Ethan Van Sciver. Just a sensational cover. I don't know. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I like the way the lantern looks in his mouth. Those fangs look, man.
Yeah,
he really did some work on those fangs.
Yeah, he really excels at some of this visceral stuff and stuff. Oh, I just noticed. I didn't realize the power ring is on one of his teeth. That's cool.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that at first. You're right.
I've looked at this cover I don't know how many times and never noticed until just now.
Now, when I would assume this character's been around before, and I don't recall seeing him before. Do you?
Yeah, there was a character called the Shark before, similar outfit, but didn't look nearly as sharky. He looked more humanoid than this. But I really think this is an upscaled version. I love what Geoff Johns does here because he takes what a shark can do. Sharks instill fear, and what a great combination to team up with Hal. And I think, honestly, this is probably the only time that I can think of, and maybe people will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only time we see Hal dealing with an underwater menace during the entire run. In fact, it might be the only time in the last 30 years that we've seen a Green Lantern fight somebody underwater like this, which I always thought is cool because, we always see Green Lanterns in space, but the power ring can protect them underwater as well. So it really, it just makes things a little bit different.
Yeah, it's cool. I ought to make an aquatic Green Lantern, just one that patrols the ocean.
Yeah. So this issue starts out with a jet flying through the air, and this guy is talking to another guy next to him on the airplane. And they're on their way to Coast City. We get that through the dialogue that this guy, he's ready for a fresh start, and he reaches over to shake the guy's hand. And that's when we realize the person sitting next to him on this flight is William Hand, aka Black Hand. And when they go to shake hands, obviously the guy's, you can see the Black Hand is unhinged. The whole thing where it's an eye for an eye, and then he kind of stutters and he says, hand for a hand, is pretty creepy.
Oh, man. Black Hand's my favorite. That's what I loved about this issue the most, was seeing him come back, because later on what he does is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But I'm always a huge fan of Black Hand. Still am. Probably one of my top 3 villains alongside Cyborg Superman.
It's neat because we see the kind of the evolution of Black Hand in this issue. The plane is taken over by these gremlin-like creatures who we find out later are Krolatoans. And the Krolatoans, if you watched Young Justice, they appeared on the Young Justice animated series there at one point. They were some of the villains that were on Earth, working to kind of thwart the heroes in the show. And they appear in the wing. And for those of you that don't like to have to do any heavy lifting, I'm sorry, but they speak German.
Yeah.
So it does require, you can read the book with Google Translate, because that isn't throwaway dialogue. It's literally translated to German. This first panel, the first one says, your planes will be improved. And then the other one tries to almost calm them down and says, we're not here for you. And then the third one says, we need people. And they look at William Hand and says, he is very valuable. So they break into the plane, and one of them grabs William Hand and says, very valuable indeed, and plucks him off the plane.
They should have put subtitles in there.
Yeah, people want to complain a lot about Morrison and some of the things that are there. I mean, it's same thing. But at least you can translate this.
That's true.
Cuts away to Edwards Air Force Base, and we see Hal about to fly in an F-22, and he gets called back by his buddy, by General Stone, pulls him back, and we see Cowgirl, and she gets on the plane, and there's a little bit of a flirty, competitive thing between Hal and Cowgirl, as Cowgirl gets to fly the plane that Hal was supposed to fly.
I miss Cowgirl. I wish she'd show up more.
Yeah. I mean, we saw her recently, but I really liked, and I like where they go with Cowgirl too down the road a little bit. But there was a lot of potential there, and it just didn't come to fruition. I'm not sure why Geoff didn't stick with her. I don't know whether he felt like she didn't stick as a character. If I ever get the opportunity to interview Geoff, I think that would be one of the questions I'd ask him, to be honest.
That'd be a good question.
But General Stone is asking Hal to go investigate the body that we saw at the end of the last issue. If you recall, the shark attacked a sailor and this girl on the beach, and they found the body, and they've asked Hal to go take a look at it because they think it ranks a little bit higher in Hal's priority list than flying a jet. So Hal flies across Coast City, and I love this panel where Hal's kind of flying, and he kind of salutes or waves to the construction workers as they wave to him.
Oh yeah, just now noticed that. I didn't know he was doing that too.
Yeah,
because they're rebuilding Coast City.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of neat. And I still like one of the things that's kind of gone away is how Ethan designed the badge to come off of the chest almost as a police alarm siren thing, which I thought was really kind of innovative. I love his version of Hal. Some complaints I hear about his artwork, and I agree with it to a point, is how the blacks make it hard for there to be any detail because it's flat black for the black parts of the costume. And so you often don't see a lot of detail. It's interesting, but at the same time, I can see where, in that particular image, the legs look a little odd because there's nothing there to define them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're right about the emblems, though. I like the way they're interactive with him.
And the next scene, we go to the beach, and it's really a gross scene, and they don't show it so much. I mean, you see some bones on the ground and an arm, but the way the coroner describes, I've never seen a man's skull cracked open like a coconut and the brain eaten. It looks like it was licked clean.
I think the guy in the background trying to shoo away all the...
Yeah. And another guy with his hand over his mouth trying to hold it in. To me, that makes it more disturbing than if I saw it. It's a technique with the old horror movies where they couldn't show you everything. When you saw the Wolfman attacking a girl, you only saw the shadow of the Wolfman attacking the girl. You never saw what happened, and your mind paints a picture far worse than their special effects and makeup could have done. And I feel the same way here.
And of course, he's holding up that massive shark tooth.
Yeah. And Hal recognizes it, and so off into the water he goes. And again, another neat panel where he dives into the water. And in the comic, the printed version, there's the spine going down the middle. But if you look at it digitally, that's all cleaned up, and it's just a gorgeous panel. But again, you can kind of see where the legs, because it's all black and the legs are together, so it looks like one mass. It doesn't look like two legs, from his thighs to his knees. I can see where that might be somewhat distracting.
Yeah, but it's a cool shot with him with the sharks in the background.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of sharks in the water, and Hal points out that they're there to pick up the scraps of the apex predator that's he's in search of. And then we see, and I love the scene, Hal in the title page, it's called Feeding Frenzy is the name of this installment, but you see the shark attacking Hal, and Hal's made a construct shark cage. And you get a sense of proportion with the shark is just this beast. I mean, he could swallow Hal whole.
Well, and he's got like 3 rows of teeth on the top and bottom.
Yeah, they made an action figure of the shark, and they kept it downsized. It's still larger than a normal figure, but it's not to this kind of scale. But it's a neat looking figure with the web hands and the fin on the back.
Kind of puts Killer Shark to shame.
Yeah, it really does. And then we cut to Bel Rev, and then this is Geoff juggling three subplots at the same time, and Hector Hammond is there, and he's getting a bath, and the gremlins show up there too.
Poor Hector Hammond. I will say though, I like Ethan Van Sciver's Hector Hammond a lot.
Yeah, I do too.
I think he did a good job by making it look somewhat normal, but not normal at the same time.
Yeah. And I love, here's the, Hector Hammond is still pining for Hal's brain memories. Nobody can live an exciting enough life for him to be able to experience. And the gremlins show up, and again, they're speaking German, and the one says this experiment was a win-win. So now we're realizing that Hector Hammond is also part of the Krolatian tampering. And what we find out is that the Krolatians, they're very advanced scientifically, and they basically take a creature or a being and they advance them across the evolutionary scale, and then they turn them into a weapon and then sell it to the highest bidder.
Huh. Interesting.
So what we're finding out here is that Hector Hammond, as opposed to his traditional Silver Age origin, is actually a victim of the Krolatians, as is Black Hand. Or Black Hand is about to be a victim of the Krolatians.
About to be, yeah. I was going to say.
And cut back to Hal and the shark, and fighting against the shark, and talking about, the shark being a super evolved by millions of years, just like Hector Hammond. He hasn't put all this together again. And he reminds us that Hector Hammond had talked about another experiment, and this is what he's thinking, and Hal's starting to figure out that there's some connection between Hector Hammond and the shark. And just about then, the shark's hunger and his ability to instill fear has caught Hal a little bit off guard.
Yep. Then he bites him, takes his arm.
Yeah, bites right into his arm, leaves teeth in his arm.
Oh, yeah, I see it on that last panel down there at the bottom.
And I love the harpoon and hook constructs. And, Hal's got a shark bite and shark teeth hanging out of his arm, and he's still ultra focused on what he's doing.
I like that panel where it shows the shark dragging Hal. It's got him by his arm.
Yep, drags him, and then they pop inside of a ship. And suddenly the shark is distracted by all of the blood and brains that are at his disposal inside the ship. And, he's still got Hal dragged by the arm, and he sees flesh, blood, and brains, and he's about to get somebody, and Hal harpoons him. And then the shark remembers who Hal is, because he kind of forgotten. Another neat panel of
neat brain.
Yeah, neat stuff. And then he bites down on Hal's ring hand, which is not a good idea. We find out that we're on a ship in the harbor, and Hal launches the shark off of his ring hand like a little torpedo, right, like a rocket, right into the sky.
Right. And we cut to Palmdale.
Yes, and then we see the aliens have left William Hand in the grass, and this is where we see the metamorphosis of Black Hand, and it is so creepy. I think this was such a brilliant stroke by Geoff Johns, because prior to this, Black Hand was almost a C-list villain. He had this little gauntlet-y thing that he tried to shoot things with, and it was okay, but this just takes him to a whole nother level.
It does. It makes it more creepy.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the eventual premise of what he would take on when he was in Blackest Night. Absolutely.
And it's just interesting that it's such a cool take that William Hand, who loves death, he absorbs the life energy out of other things to stay alive, essentially, and basically he regenerates his own arm.
And then it's really cool because then he sees the hospital.
Yes.
He smells something.
He smelled death, and the look on his face is so creepy.
It is. He's got that big old grin.
It's really, this elevates Black Hand from, he was probably a C-list, B-list character. He's now a top-tier villain at this point.
Yeah. I always thought he was underused, to be honest with you. But, you can't overuse a villain so much like I feel like they overused the Joker, but I don't want to digress into Batman crap, but Black Hand is like one of those guys where he's there, he shows up, and it's going to be a good time when he does. Kind of like Cyborg Superman, or over in Superman Zod, same way.
So the shark is running crazy on board the ship in the meantime. And Hal does this really cool thing where he uses his ring to create a gunner and use the ship's guns against the shark.
And then I like how he retrieves his power battery.
Yeah. He's not using the pocket universe thing. He's got it back in his apartment, and he sends this really long arm in to retrieve the power battery, and he's going to recharge himself. And just as he gets ready to start it, the shark comes in again and grabs Hal right around the waist. I mean, what a huge image of the shark diving up out of the water and grabbing Hal around the midsection. I mean, he could have bit Hal on two right there.
He's so big too. That shark is humongous.
Yeah, apparently he gets bigger as he gets hungrier. And then when he's satiated, he kind of goes back down to normal. But he drags Hal down to the depths of the ocean, and Hal shoves the power battery in the shark's mouth, and he bites down on it, and it blows up and goes kaboom. Leaving Hal with, not much power left, because that was why he was charging his ring in the first place. And, Hal's not in a good place here. And then what happens is the aliens were under the water. They were there to retrieve the shark too, because they want to take the shark and Hector Hammond back. It's time to sell their merchandise.
There you see the Green Lantern in German.
Yep, you see Green Lantern in German, and then it says, we demand a challenge. And then the next panel says he will be the most valuable asset to Thanagar. So they want to take Hal and they want to turn him into a weapon too and sell him to the Thanagarians. And then we go back to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And the creepiness begins. I mean, you see him walk into a room with a woman that's there, and you can see the sound effect of the machine doing her pulse and stuff. And then you hear it flatline, and you see her. She's already got flies there, and her face is shrunk down. And he's going room to room to room. You'll do, and you, and you, and you. And then the issue ends with a hallway full of victims and Black Hand with his hand back.
And what a great image. I mean, what a great last image for this.
I
had to take
a
creepy shot of it. I love it.
Yeah, it is so creepy. Beautiful issue. And I think it really, it speaks to Geoff Johns and balancing these three subplots. You've got three things going on at once, and they kind of start merging together. And we'll see in the next issue where all of these plots finally converge together into one story. But very effective storytelling. Geoff Johns does a great job with the script, and Ethan Van Sciver's artwork really takes that script and just brings it up a notch.
Yeah, the artwork's a little bit different in the next one. It's not Ethan Van Sciver. That's Simone Bianchi.
Yeah. Interesting. A neat issue. I really liked it. It just, you reread this stuff and you kind of, you remember where it's going, but you read it through different eyes now because you know what this is building to. And when we start talking about the next issue, you'll see that Geoff knew he was going to do Blackest Night this far back in the first 6 issues of this series. He had it all mapped out, and it just, I don't know. It makes me fall in love with this run all over again just to reread it. And I haven't done it in a while, so I really enjoy going back and rereading these old books.
And not only that, you just got to think, we've been ingesting, Geoff Johns' Green Lantern for better part of 2 years now, almost 2 years. And you get so used to how his writing is and how Green Lantern is portrayed. You go back and read these older issues, these old retro issues and stuff. It just, like you said, it makes you appreciate it a little bit more, But you also can't take yourself back to the first time you read it either, So cleansing your palate of Grant Morrison for a bit and going back and reading some of the Johns material, it's actually a good cleanser for it, and it's a good run to get it. It's a good run to get involved in,
Yeah, I mean, if people haven't read this run, I can't imagine anybody listening to the show has it unless they're very, very new. But if you haven't read the Geoff Johns run, I can't recommend it enough because just the fun of the discovery and the expansion of the Green Lantern mythology is just, it's top notch. I mean, I can't recommend it as much as I possibly could. I love the Silver Age stuff and I love the Bronze Age stuff. It holds a special place in my heart nostalgically. But there's something about this Geoff Johns run that is so well crafted up to a point. And I'll be honest in saying that I think after Blackest Night, Geoff didn't know where he was going to go with it next, and some of the quality kind of dipped after that.
But that's the ebb and flow of comic books, I mean, if you got to, I don't know, you and I have been reading them for so long that, to stay spot on in a comic book series, I mean, it's almost near impossible, because the ever-changing paradigm of like artists and writers that come, it's like you have to get used to a different interpretation of things that happen, and it's like, it's not always easy to do, especially when you read somebody you love for so long, like Venditti when he did Green Lantern for that long time and that long stretch and stuff, and Geoff Johns for that matter. You get used to liking something for such a long time, and then it pivots over to a different writer who does things a little bit differently than what you're used to. Sometimes it's hit and miss. You don't always like it. And that's just kind of the nature of the comic book industry, and I think that happens for a reason, though. I mean, you gain readers, then you lose some, and then readers come back. I mean, I've done it many a times with books before. I mean, I dropped Aquaman for a little while, came back to it, dropped it here and there, came back to it, and you always go back to what you love.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, we will take a break, and when we get back, I think our Power Ring has some more communications from listeners to share with us.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear what they say.
Green Lantern Myron and Green Lantern Phil, you have incoming transmissions. Would you like me to play them?
All right, Myron, looks like I got another Ring transmission coming in. Ring, can you transmit the message, please?
The first message is from Yeshua, who contacted us via YouTube. Message playing in 3, 2, 1.
I really admire Myron's dedication to the topic of Green Lantern and quality episodes.
Yeshua, thank you so much for the comment. I appreciate it. Like I said in the start of the episode, I love doing this stuff and trying to add to people's fandom and enhance it and give them something additional on top of what they get in the printed page. So I appreciate you taking the time out to make a comment. I love, like I said, Phil and I love doing this stuff, and it makes us feel good when you guys respond and say that it has value to you.
Agreed. Totally agree.
All right, Ring, why don't you play the next one?
The next message comes from Chad, from the Blog of OA Facebook group. Message playing in 3, 2, 1.
I love the Power Ring transmission segment. Keep it. It's very creative.
Thanks, Chad. Chad liked the Power Ring transmission segment, and it was a new thing Myron thought up, the brainchild of our Green Lantern hero here. So it's really cool. It's nuanced, it's kind of fun, I mean, it's weird recording because we don't hear the transmission, but I'm glad you guys are getting a kick out of it. I love it. It's fun to do, and it's always getting good feedback from people that enjoy what we're doing too.
We broke the fourth wall. No.
Yeah.
All right, Ring, give us the next one.
The next message is from our friend Donnie, the Emerald Enthusiast on Twitter. Message playing in 3, 2, 1.
You guys are a riot. And I thought the Ring transmission listener feedback was a stroke of genius.
Thanks, Donnie. We appreciate it. Love you, bud. If you don't follow Don, he's the Emerald Enthusiast on Twitter. Does a lot of great little mini reviews, has a nice YouTube channel. We'll link to the YouTube channel here on the show notes too. He thought the Ring transmission thing was a stroke of genius. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if I'm capable of having strokes of genius, but I might be able to keep capable of having strokes. But I appreciate it. We just thought it was like we said before, it's something fun to do, something different.
Food for thought with Donnie. Every time I hear his name, I always think of the character from Big Lebowski. Thanks, Donnie. Thanks, Donnie. Appreciate it. We love you, man. I hope everything's going well where you are. And best to you and the family. And be safe.
All right, Power Ring, give us the next one.
Before I send the next transmission, I must say that Chad and Donnie have great taste. The next transmission is from John O. is Good via YouTube. He has a comment about your conversation in the last episode about Green Lantern Season 2, Issue 9. Playing in 3, 2, 1.
Hal used his space-fold ring power back in Season 1, Issue 8, to allow Green Arrow to shoot an arrow from Earth to the moon to stop that alien assassin. Also, the GL logo to me is for Grant and Liam.
Thanks, John O. is Good from the YouTube. Yeah, I really like the spacefold ring power. I thought it was really cool. And you mentioned in there that he used it back in Issue 8, Season 1. The Green Arrow shot that arrow from Earth to the moon to stop that assassin. And, we had talked briefly about that GL logo, of the new one that was in the last issue, that new outfit he was wearing, which I thought was really, really cool looking. And it's funny what you did there with the Grant Liam. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Right.
I can totally see that, them doing that. But I never made that connection. And I had forgotten all about that whole thing with the arrow. So good catch on you, sir. And it looks like we've got one last bit of comments from listeners. So Power Ring, go ahead and give us the last one.
Our last message is from Ulf, who posted his comment on the blog of OA website. His comment is about the current run on the Green Lantern by Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp. Playing in 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to miss Morrison and Sharp's series. What a breath of fresh air to the franchise and the character. Why does it feel like it's been under the radar?
Ulf, I agree. I think that this series has kind of gone under the radar since it first launched. DC kind of promoted it in the very beginning. You saw it on DC Daily. You saw some ads in the issues. Back then they had that, that DC magazine that was out there periodically. And then they stopped promoting the book, which is interesting to me because you'd think you'd want to heighten this a little bit more given all the things you could pump up. And the book has been selling well from what I've been able to tell. It's been hard since the pandemic started to get a really good idea of what the sales numbers are. But the last time we were able to get some really good valid numbers were back pre-COVID. And at the time, the series was selling as much as the Justice League Odyssey book and Far Sector combined. So it was doing well without a push, but you kind of wonder what would happen if they gave it a little bit more of a promotional push. But he was commenting on the February solicitations. We know that Future State is in January and February, and so it was surprising when the solicitations came out saying that issue 11 was going to actually show up in February. So we thought we were going to have 2 months without a Green Lantern issue. It looks like we're going to get at least the next to the last issue of the Morrison run in February. So it's only a 1 month hiatus.
Not too bad.
Not too bad at all. So, Power Ring, why don't you tell everybody how they can be a part of the show?
You can become a part of the show by leaving a message up to 1 minute long on our voicemail line. Call us at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can also email us at podcast@blogofoa.com. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Well, thanks, Power Ring. We'll be back here in a couple of weeks. We've got the Christmas holidays coming, and I'm not sure whether we're going to be talking about a retro issue the next time around or if we're going to be talking about a new issue of the Green Lantern. We'll have to see how the timing of things go. I'm not sure. I can't remember just now when the next issue comes out. I think it comes out on the 10th. So maybe it'll be that issue, or maybe we'll do another issue of the Geoff Johns run before then.
Or the Larfleeze Christmas special.
Well, we did do that last year.
Oh, we did do that. Man, we should do that every year.
But we could do it again. Maybe I don't know. If you guys are listening and you want us to talk about the Larfleeze Christmas special again, let us know. And if you do, we'll cover it again. Why not?
All right.
All right. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, as always, treat each other well, give a little thanks every day, and make every day your brightest day.
Have safe holidays.
The Podcast of OA is the official podcast of the blog of OA and a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. Share your comments and questions by calling the show's voicemail line at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can send your emails to podcast@blogofoa.com. You can also find the Blog of OA and the Podcast of OA on Twitter and Facebook. Green Lantern and other related characters are the copyrighted property of DC Comics Incorporated and are used without permission. The Blog of OA and the Podcast of OA are fan productions and do not claim any ownership over the Green Lantern or any other copyrighted properties.